So Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, that's the media empire controlled by the American billionaire Rupert, has just found another woman to attack. What is it about News Corp and women? Brittany Higgins, Patricia Gavalis, Louise Milligan, Julia Gillard, Yasmin Abdel-Magid, Gillian Triggs, Emma Alberici, overkill on the lot of them. And here they are, the News Corp lackeys, relentlessly rabbiting on about cancel culture while cancelling women left, right and centre. Or perhaps just left and centre. We'll get to that in a moment. The latest target is Antoinette Lattouf, a journalist who was doing some ABC radio shifts and had done a story for Crikey claiming the Israel war lobby had doctored their Gas the Jews video of pro-Palestinian protesters on the Sydney Opera House steps. She put questions repeatedly to the AJA, the Australian Jewish Association, about their video after getting experts to test it, the suspicious edits of this video, and getting a fact check from RMIT. This was beyond normal journalistic practice. They put it to AJA and they got no response despite repeated requests. Then she retweeted a Human Rights Watch report on the Palestine massacre and got the bullet for it by the ABC. The story was even in the Australian before she got home from getting the bullet that day. Lattouf, mind you, is a contractor. She's not on staff at the ABC. The ABC, of course, got the usual barrage of complaints from the usual culprits, and they let her go for alleged breaches of social media policy. The matter is now with the lawyers, so we won't comment beyond this, but she has all the right ingredients for a News Corp misogynistic pile-on. She's not Anglo-Saxon. She's a critic of the butcher Benjamin Netanyahu's war crimes in Gaza, and she's a woman. She's in the same league as Yasmin Abdel-Magid, whose transgression was to do a tweet critical of Anzac Day. They hounded her out of the country. Their coverage was negative and relentless. Louise Milligan, the investigative journalist on the ABC who wrote the book on Cardinal George Pell and the pedophile cover-ups by the Catholic Church. Louise got no less than 2,785 hits in the Murdoch organs. We say the word organs pointedly between May 2017, when Cardinal Pell was released, and August 2021. This includes syndications and all the ranting by Gerard Henderson. She finally took them to the Press Council and won decisively. Their coverage was not only biased, relentless, but plainly just wrong. The facts did not stack up. Patricia Gavalis is flavour of the day at the moment. She's the target du jour for News Corp. She has been for some time now. She also gets monstered a bit by the left on social media for trying to balance, as is the ABC's charter. She's a dedicated, hard-working journalist, and she's the perfect target for some News Corp bullying. I'm feeling a bit left out here. Editor, please cue the What About Me song. He gets to his feet and he says, "It isn't fair. Can't you see I want my share?" From News Corp. You just take more than you give. Here is yours truly, openly a critic of the Netanyahu genocide in Gaza, just being ignored by News Corp. Come on, fellas. Sure, we've been getting the usual terrorist sympathiser, Hamas sympathiser barrage from cowardly anonymous types on social media, but where's Sky News and the Australian? Is it because I'm a bloke? Is it because I'll have a crack back at them? They can always complain. As you know, we have a human resources department, and we'll eventually elevate your complaint to the board subcommittee on dealing with whinging time wasters. Seriously though, I can speak with some authority on this subject, as for 8 years I was a columnist at the Australian newspaper, and then for another 8 years at Fairfax, now owned by Nine Entertainment, the Sydney Morning Herald. So I'm aware of the nuances here, so a few critical points. Gaslighting, misogyny, racist dog whistling, bullying minorities and inciting hatred is part of the business model at News Corporation. It plays to the News Corp audience. It pushes the buttons of bogan prejudice and disaffection, and it gets clicks, it gets traffic. The result is that a lot of these women, and others, but mostly women, get death threats and are subject to brutal bullying on social media as a result of the News Corp coverage. Now, this is a real issue for government because it only takes one unhinged reader revved up by their gaslighting columnists to tip over the edge. At least one of them, the women mentioned, has been under police protection. Another one, a female politician we know of, she received death threats for not getting on board with the Israel war lobby, and she got critical coverage, obviously, in the NewsCorp mastheads. But Rupert's mob in Australia, News Corporation, has increasingly moved to the right to pursue the Fox News business model. Fox News in the US, that is, the very thing which led to Donald Trump, January 6th insurrection and the erosion of social fabric and increased political tensions in that country. It must be said too, in fairness, that by no means all News Corp journalists are of this ilk, only the ones we hear about all the time. Many are uncomfortable with all this. I personally know plenty of them. These people have mortgages though. Where would they get a job otherwise? And there is more money. There is higher pay for those prepared to go harder on the hatred front. News has always paid more than rival media organisations in Australia. And the next point is the caged animal syndrome, the tribality. They know at News Corp they're despised increasingly. It's all down to them. It's their fault, but they're increasingly despised for their gaslighting. And so this defensive mentality of self-justification has only made them more malicious. They're attack dogs in pursuit of their perceived ideological adversaries. Again, it drives traffic. And so the battle against woke drags on, the culture wars, the siege mentality exacerbated by the explosion in social media critics. The old Fairfax, now Nine Entertainment, and News used to be mortal enemies. They'd be at each other's throats the whole time. But now the big players in fossil media are on the same side as their credibility sinks and they are left to attack Twitter and so on. The funny thing is that from Sky to the AFL to the Oz, they all run these media sections in the mainstream media where they all parrot on about each other with the latest MSM gossip. While the world's moved on with the internet and social media, they pretty much ignore that. They don't know how to cope with it. Their fortress is under siege, their stranglehold on public information, and so it is that they are government subsidised through the digital media bargaining code. They're captured. The next point, the ABC. The ABC is stuck in the middle of this mayhem. It's under constant attack by News Corp's pundits. The Israel war lobby too, deathly scared of being tied up in their Byzantine internal complaints process. If they put one perceived tiny foot wrong on balance, that just ties up hours in the day for executive producers and producers handling complaints, and that is the point of the incessant complaining from vested interests. They are stuck, and they, like other institutions, have a social media policy, or else they would not be so buried in complaints the cleaners would have to read the news. Which brings us to the next point. Institutions generally, not just media, but all, now have social media policies, which puts a lid on free speech to a point. It entrenches a tribal situation where you're on the inside, you're with the big institutions, or you're on the outside and you're able to speak freely. And so institutions generally are more defensive as they jealously protect their own reputations publicly and stop their workers from expressing any alternate views on public policy issues. It's the us and them mentality. Now, if the effects of News Corp bullying were not so devastating personally on these women, particularly for their most cherished targets, intelligent, outspoken, and not right-wing nutjob women, this would perhaps be quite funny. I mean, look at all these pundits raging on about cancel culture while cancelling people, loudly denouncing people's right to have a view, while holding forth indignantly about attacks on free speech. This from the mob, whose opinions are all the same on everything. And when one of them deviates from the Pravda, it is a story. It's exotic, as was the case with Sky News pundit Chris Kenny on The Voice. Chris was a supporter of The Voice, unlike the rest of News Corp. Imagine that. Chris Kenny, the only thing which distinguishes News Corp from the official communist government news agency Xinhua. You don't even have to read it to know what's coming from Rupert's Xinhua. Liberals good, Labor bad, Greens satanic, Dutton good, Albo bad, America great, China bad, Israel good, Palestinians bad, Christians good, Muslims bad, The Voice bad, coal and gas good, renewables bad, unis bad, right-wing think tanks good, and women bad, unless we agree with their opinions. And billionaires, of course. How great. How great are billionaires? Xinhua, eat your heart out. And just to kill two birds with one stone here, It is interesting to see that the police have charged a member of the Alamedine family, the crime family, with the firebombing of Jordan Shanks' home in Bondi. Jordan Shanks is the YouTube star who goes under the moniker FriendlyJordies. Now, this is commendable. The police are acting and the press is covering it, which is also commendable, unlike when the house was firebombed. Not so much coverage there, despite this apparent act of domestic terrorism. Also, the New South Wales Police had not covered themselves in glory by arresting FriendlyJordies producer Christo Lanker at home, just what John Barilaro, the politician, wanted. So it will be interesting to see the outcome, too, of the Victoria Police investigation into the firebombing of the Burger Burger shop in Caulfield in Melbourne after the October attacks by Hamas on Israel. Of course, Burger is owned by a Palestinian guy. So let's see some police investigation there and some media coverage ensuing. Because let's face it, it will be racist if otherwise. Thank you for your support. Please like, share, or comment in the section below.